On Point is brought to you by Dargin Global.
A very good evening and welcome to yet another episode of On Point. My name is Patria Kate Charles. I'm flying solo today. Dennis is off for a week. I was off last week on honeymoon and I'm back. He's not off on honeymoon though, a whole nother matter, but he should be back with you next week. But there's a lot that happened apparently while I was away. The big talking point when I came home would have been the earthquake, apparently 7.7 on the Richter scale off on the waters and felt by most everybody across the island. It literally sent waves across Jamaica, people talking about how long they felt it. That was the big takeaway, just how long they felt it going on. And it raises a couple of questions. One for me was one that perhaps maybe about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3, ODPEM had put out a reminder telling people what to do in the event of an earthquake. And one of those reminders said, don't stand on the door jambs. Now I was confused, because if I take my mind back to Patria K, 6, 7 years old in primary school, one of those things that was drilled into my head was, in the event of an earthquake, stand under the door jamb. Now what's changed? That's one of the things that we need to understand. There really needs to be some clarity. There really needs to be some clear instructions about if something's changed, why it has changed, and what the new protocol is. There also are concerns that are raised around what happens with a mass group of people. We've got all these call centers going up and more business places are employing people en masse. Now what happens? How many people have actually practiced their earthquake drills? How many of those earthquake drills are not just something on a dusty piece of paper sitting somewhere and they're active living documents? It's something that we need to look at. And then certainly we need to look at our safety. One can't forget, only maybe about 2 years ago, the Bureau of Standards declaring concerns around the quality of the concrete blocks, the strength of concrete blocks that was being put out by some of these manufacturers. Now, if the block is compromised, certainly the building will be compromised. And what does it mean if and when Jamaica faces the full brunt of another 7.7 earthquake on the Richter scale? What do we do then? And let's be very clear about where we live and the conditions under which we live. We're talking earthquake, we're talking hurricane, we're talking about so many other things that can be hazard to health and life and safety. Where are we with regards to an audit of those very institutions that were flagged 2-3 years ago to be having faulty blocks? Have we followed up? Have they been closed? Where are we with that? There are investigations that need to happen. So I personally have concerns with regards to those particular issues, and we need to have those sorted. Have to talk about it as well. The coronavirus. I was coming home on the flight on Sunday and I saw 4 people on the plane wearing masks. And I said, hold on, what's going on? People were taking serious precautions, even on the planes. I got a picture today of someone walking in Halfway Tree, unbothered by the world, in her mask, because she was deciding that she was going to be safe. China, Jamaica, she didn't care where. There are conversations that are happening around Jamaica's preparedness for even the eventuality of one case. The last I checked, there were 11 reported cases in the United States, and they often say if America sneezes, Jamaica catches a cold. We have lots of people who travel between Jamaica and the United States on a regular basis. Are we under threat for that? What is the real screening process like at the ports of entry? What happens? What's the actual activation plan that happens if there is a suspected case of somebody who may not be coming from China, but may be coming from one of the other 2 countries that actually have, well, 2, maybe 3 countries that have declared cases of the coronavirus? It's something that absolutely needs to be investigated. The final thing is, my heart goes out to our students who are in China, many of them on scholarship. But we have to be practical in the solutions that we put on the table for these students. One of the things I was hearing even on the way back was the call for us to get all of these students on a plane and send them back to Jamaica. That's going to happen at a cost of almost $1.5 million to the country. One, I don't know whether or not that is something that we can afford. Two, when you get them here, are you going to quarantine them for 14 days? Three, what does it also mean for all of the goods that we consume coming out of China? Are we checking rice out of China at the ports of entry for possible coronavirus contamination? So much of what we eat, what we wear, what we use are coming in a container from China. Are those being quarantined for 14 days? Lots of questions to answer. I don't have the answers, but I will continue conversations right here. We're not talking about the coronavirus or earthquakes. We are talking about something else that's shook up the stock exchange, not just here in Jamaica, but worldwide. It's actually one of the best performing stock exchanges in the world, and we're talking to Marlene Street Forest. And then another company that's hoping to raise some big money on the stock exchange is First Rock. What are they going to do with those funds raised? We're talking to them about that. But up next, let's take a look at the top business stories for this week.
At number 5, investors worried about the spread of the novel coronavirus wiped more than $400 billion off the value of China's stocks in the first trading session on Monday after an extended Lunar New Year break. The Shanghai Composite Index sank to a one-year low after falling more than 8% on opening and sustaining losses throughout the day. The index closed down 7.9% for its biggest daily drop since 2015. China's central bank has pledged $173 billion to stabilize one of the world's biggest economies. At number 4, after 5 months of hearings, investigations, and revelations about President Trump's dealings with Ukraine, a divided United States Senate acquitted him on Wednesday of charges that he abused his power and obstructed Congress to aid his own re-election. The Senate fell well short of the two-thirds margin that would have been needed to remove President Trump. At number 3, the House of Representatives on Tuesday approved the second supplementary estimates, which shows additional spending of $7.966 billion for this fiscal year. This has increased the budget to $859 billion, with non-debt expenditure moving to $541.4 billion and public debt servicing at $317.6 billion. In his remarks, Minister of Finance and the Public Service Dr. Nigel Clark noted that the fiscal year to the end of November 2019 recorded better than budgeted performances on both the central government's primary balance and fiscal balance indicators. At number 2, the Economic Program Oversight Committee, EPOC, says based on the preliminary performance results up to the end of November 2019, the government of Jamaica is on track to meet its economic reform program targets for 2019, with the exception of the inflation target. Inflation ended the year at 6.2%, just outside the Bank of Jamaica's target range of 4 to 6%. Meanwhile, EPOC says it is hopeful that as the reforms in the foreign exchange market take hold, volatility levels and the swings in the currency could be reduced. At number 1, Trans-Jamaican Highway is seeking to raise upwards of $100 million or 14.1 billion Jamaican dollars in what will be Jamaica's largest initial public offering IPO on record. The IPO opens on February 17 and is scheduled to close 3 weeks later on March 9. The initial amount of shares being offered in the IPO is $8 billion to raise $80 million or 11.2 billion Jamaican dollars. However, the company is reserving the right to upside the offer by an additional 2 billion shares, which would increase the offer to 10 billion shares, raising $100 million or 14.1 billion Jamaican dollars.
When we come back from the break, on point, we're talking stocks. When you're at the top, is down the only place to go? We'll talk about it after the break. Folks, welcome back to On Point. Now the Jamaica Stock Exchange at the end of this month is terminating their 50-year celebration. And I don't know how many stock exchanges, certainly from the Caribbean, can boast that in the last 5 years, they've been the #1 stock exchange twice And also in those 5 years, they've come up in the top 5 of stock exchanges around the world. Watch this.
Once again, the Jamaica Stock Exchange, JSE, gained worldwide recognition as one of 2019's top performing markets. By the end of last year, as the JSE celebrated its 50th year of operation, its combined market capitalization was some 2.1 trillion Jamaican dollars. The percentage growth ranked it 4th in the world. Despite falling from its number 1 ranking in 2018, the local stock exchange still garnered much recognition from entities such as Bloomberg and the New York Stock Exchange for its strong performance. At the end of 2019, the JSE had 84 companies listed between the junior and main markets with 119 securities.
We're talking the Jamaica Stock Exchange right now, and no better place or person to talk about the Jamaica Stock Exchange is the very proud managing director of the entity, Marlene Street Forrest. How are you doing?
I'm fine, Patria.
You must be very happy.
Over the moon.
You have been at the helm
Yes.
of those 3 major accomplishments that I mentioned earlier.
Yes, that's correct.
First, twice in the last 5 years,
Yes.
and the last ranking would have had you in the top 5.
Top 5, yes.
What's that magic? What's causing all that magic?
I think we can put that down to our strategic plan, but we can also put that down mainly to our conviction and teamwork. So many parts, moving parts, but at the end of the day, we have one vision to see the stock market grow. We have the vision to see so many persons get involved. We have that vision that persons should know that they have this opportunity for wealth creation. And every member of the team, whether it is inside the stock exchange or those associated with it, are on one accord.
But something significant must have changed in the last 5 years.
Patria, we also had the government and the financial, how they managed to arrest the deterioration in terms of the financial underpinning landscape. And that when opportunities arise, you must take advantage of that. The other thing is market education. The stock exchange spent quite a considerable amount of money on just ensuring that every aspect, all the players in the market were educated, and we continue to do that in terms of forums that we have, in terms of workshops. We within that time we put in place the e-campus because we understood that this was important. We would not want people to go out and say they're purchasing stocks and they do not know what they are doing. Mm-hmm. That would not be good for anybody, nor for the economy. So we spent a lot of times in the schools and in the churches, just everywhere you can think of. We have said, look, on the investor side, this is it. But then we went also to the business side, and we went knocking on people's doors that have businesses, and we say, let us tell you about the advantages of listing on an exchange. It's not just about raising capital. It is really improving governance. It is looking at how do you prepare for the next level. It is about how do you promote your business, how people see you. And so we talk about those things. And so it is preparing all the sides. You must prepare the sides too in order to get the results that you want.
This is a business program, and I'm going to get to the consumer bit, but I want to look at the businesses, because part of why some companies would have shied away from the stock exchange is because there's a level of transparency. People know how much you earn.
Yes.
People know how much your directors get paid.
Right.
There's a level of open doors that people are sometimes uncomfortable with in business in a small country. How have you found that companies now are taking that kind of transparency?
I think there is a shift. People understand, yes, I'm going to disclose, but there is then what is the reward for disclosing? And with good governance, companies grow. And people are beginning to realize that this sunlight disinfects and it also helps. So we have seen that as pay dividend, so much so that we have companies that say, yes, we had listed, for example, on the junior market because of the corporate tax advantage, but we find that that is secondary now to how we feel and what this has done for business, how we have improved our governance structure. We have found that during this process, if we did not improve the governance structure, probably we would not be in existence. So people have come on to the point that it is better that governance, know what is happening in your company, that audit committee, and that remuneration committee. These committees, the corporate governance committees, they help to just shore up that business and put a premium to the business. When a company discloses, when a company lists on the exchange, you find that even the banks, because we encourage more equity capital, not that we don't have a bond market and you can raise loan capital, but even the banks are more inclined to lend you, and to lend you at a rate that you can sit and negotiate.
Yes.
Because of that.
Not all flowers and roses, though.
No.
There are some companies that have been delisted.
Yes.
There are some that have buckled under the pressure, the rigors of what's required for compliance and the cost that comes with being compliant.
Well, I will say that we have not had those that have buckled under the pressure. But companies have been delisted because with all good things, you have to have rules. You have to have regulations. And the stock exchange, naturally, if you are not going to be keeping with those regulations, we are going to ask or take the step to delist that company. The fact is that we have to be conscious that it is investors' money. And investors have come to the market and invested in companies because they know that the stock exchange will be there to regulate those companies. They would not come otherwise because it would be throwing away their money. So the fact is that we must regulate. We encourage companies to be proactive if there are issues for disclosure, to disclose. But by and large, our rate of delisting is very low. We generally work with a company to see that for compliance. So the rate of delisting and the rate of companies not performing well on the market is exceptionally low.
Certainly in comparison to the rest of the world.
That is correct.
I have a lot of matters that I want to touch on.
Yes.
One certainly has been, there's been a talk from as high up as the Prime Minister about financial inclusion.
Yes.
We saw it happen with Wigton.
Yes.
Where people who had never bought a single stock before,
that's right.
new accounts would have been opened with the Jamaica Stock Exchange, people
correct.
who were purchasing into that.
Yes.
A second public company now coming onto the stock exchange,
Yes.
which is going to be Trans Jamaica, just announced.
Yes.
17th of February, people are going to be able to buy those stocks.
Yes.
The same kinds of rigor, the same kind of holding companies accountable that you put on private sector companies. Government can stand up to that?
Well, remember now that when they come to market, they're a public company.
Yes.
So they are treated no differently than if the company was initially a government-run entity. They are held to the same standards. Wigton, you have said Wigton is on the market and they are doing what they have to do.
People would have doubled their money,
yes,
smiling from ear to ear.
Of course, and I'm happy about that. And good management is there. You know, these are some of the things that one would have expected and has happened in terms of when you look on the caliber of management for these companies, and they are doing what they have to do.
But how does that happen? there's a bureaucracy that's innate that people assume they tie to a government entity. And so one of the cautions, one of the skepticisms when you thought somebody or an entity was going to transition from being public sector to listing on the stock exchange, you thought, same people on the inside. Is it going to be the same kind of mannerisms, and is the management style of the company going to be the same?
Well, let us look at almost all the companies, whether they are government, they were initially government, or they were just private, coming to public. Sometimes you find that the companies have to look on their management team and probably shore it up a bit. Sometimes they have good management team that they run with, but as you say, the transparency of it, the fact that they're accountable to shareholders, pushes them to do what is right to grow that company. And investors, because of the AGMs and all of that, the disclosure, investors push you to do that.
Absolutely.
Push you a lot to say, look, I am going to be facing these people. This is their money they have invested. What will I tell them at the end of a year as to what the business is doing?
I love it when I go to an AGM and those retirees who invest their pension in your company come and say, look, answer me about these questions.
No, it is good for everyone when they come. And that is why we are also inviting more persons to come to AGM. You look about your health, then you look about your wealth.
Yes.
Yes.
I want to ask about the social stock exchange. It was announced in the budget presentation last year.
Yes.
Lots of questions came immediately about how it would work.
Yes.
And there was an ask to wait a little bit. Let's work out some of the kinks. Let's iron out how this will look.
Right.
We're at that place now where you perhaps have some of those answers.
Yes.
Where are we now with it?
We launched, as you said, last year, January. So this is our first full year. And we launched with 5 companies. Now, what the committee did, the selection committee, selected these 5 companies for funding. Just in a nutshell, to explain what it is, we have 2 phases, 2 markets for the social stock exchange. Market 1 is where a social enterprise has a project and wants funding for that specific project.
Not the whole company listing on the stock exchange.
No.
This is, I want to buy X, I want to do X,
Yes.
I want to implement X, fund just that project.
Just that project.
Yes.
And then what happens is they will tell you the quantum. We put that up based on all of their projections. We put that up and we invite the public through this JSSE platform to fund it. The return is a social return.
So in a sense, you are crowdfunding for these social enterprises?
Yes.
For that project?
For that project. Now, the difference between the JSSE and a normal crowdfunding is that we hold that social enterprise accountable. So when the funding comes in for that project, the company must report, just as it is the same model as the Jamaica Stock Exchange and companies listed. They must report on that project.
So if I crowdfund and I say I want $1 million to buy a bus,
yes,
when I get that $1 million, I could very well go to Tahiti and have a vacation.
That is correct.
When I raise that capital through the social stock exchange, you make sure I buy that bus.
That is correct. We monitor that from the beginning to the end. So that, and within that interim, the social enterprise must report. So that report is also on that platform to say, what have I done, where have I, how is this in comparison to what I said where I would reach at this point.
How are you in raising funds for those entities?
We have, thanks to NCB Foundation, we managed to close on one. So
that one being
DEFCAN
coffee company.
Yes. And you know, they ask for this funding so that they can buy more acreages, grow the coffee, and it is such a very good story.
Absolutely.
You know. And NCB and NCB Cap Market, the foundation and Cap Market, have delivered on this, $7.5 million.
Fantastic.
So, it is just, I just want to say thank you to them again.
But we're still missing the opportunity for average people to make these kinds of contributions, because you talk about NCB Cap Markets,
yes.
NCB Foundation, these are big corporate giants putting in the money.
Yes.
Is there an opportunity for Patria to make a donation, and how does that happen?
I'm asking you now to go onto the platform, and it is jsse.jse.com. And you go into that platform, the platform is there where you can just log in, you select which one you want to fund. I mean, I'm hoping that you'd fund all 5. But you select which one and you make your contribution. You can do that through your credit card, and you make that contribution.
This has been
PayPal
one of
as
the
well, NCB and PayPal.
This has been one of the gaps, because
Yes,
other
sir.
entities have actually tried the crowdfunding for
Yes.
social enterprises. I remember clearly Jane trying to do it. I've also always heard the diaspora saying, we want to give, we want to help, we don't know how, we don't know the avenue. But something still isn't connecting with getting the funds from those who have it to those who need it.
I think they need just to know a little bit more, because the platform is there. So we have had contributions from UK, Canada, all over. But the message needs to be out just a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
We have had signed an agreement with IDB, and that agreement, within that, is that there will be more marketing, also making the platform a little easier to navigate.
Yes.
So yes, as we go, we grow and we make things easier. But right now, if persons are listening, you would want to invite them to go onto that platform and make their donations.
I can't have you and let you go and not ask you about what's to come, because the view from the top is a very scary one,
Yes.
perilous one, because when you're at the top, the only other place to go is down.
Yes.
What's going to stop the Jamaica Stock Exchange from going down?
But let me say this, we are not at the top.
You're at 5 now.
Number 5 is still not at the top. And even when you are number 1, that is in a ranking for a Bloomberg to say we are the best performing exchange. But even within that best performing, you could perform better and still be known
Still
as a
number
best.
one. Yes.
Exactly. So, and we know that. We are very, very mindful of that. So what we are doing is to ensure that there is more companies to list to keep that energy. Last year we listed 18 securities. Yes, we are targeting 20 securities this year, and we are going to get it. We are going to get it. We are working hard. You have heard that the government is going to divest more, and that's good for the market. That's good for the energy in the market. And whereas I just want to say this, because persons might have seen that the index has dipped a little, but it is softening in anticipation of some of these listings. So people are holding, waiting to invest in some of these listings. So it's not a problem.
Interesting times ahead. Marlene Street Forest, she was my guest. She's the managing director of one of the best performing stock exchanges in the world, the Jamaica Stock Exchange. We take a quick break. When we come back, there's a company that wants to raise some capital on that said stock exchange. What are they going to do with the money? We'll talk to First Rock after the break. Welcome back to On Point, folks. We're keeping the managing director of the world's 5th best stock exchange, Marlene Street Forest, but we're also joined by someone who's in the hot seat tonight because he is about to list on the stock exchange. And Marlene Street Forest is listening very keenly to every word he says. I have the vice president, the executive vice president of First Rock with me, Pierre Shirley. How you do?
I'm doing good. Thanks.
Good to have you. Congratulations.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
You must be all breathing a sigh of relief.
It's
closed. You've done the work.
We've done the work, you know. This would be, Marlene, the first listing for the year, yes?
It will be.
Yes, so perhaps I get another record we get to tick off on our belt.
Yes. I can't ask you if you got gray hairs through the process, but I mean...
I trying to hide them.
One of the conversations that Marlene and I were having before is people's apprehension on listing on the stock exchange because of the rigors that are required and the transparency. How was it for you guys at First Rock?
Well, because from inception it was our intention to list on the stock exchange, we from day one have been operating as if we were a publicly traded company. So from corporate governance to accounting practices and procedures, we have kept that in line as if we were a publicly traded company. So to list on the stock exchange a year after operation, there really wasn't a transition process for us. I can appreciate what you're talking about with other companies, for lack of a better word, mom and pop organizations that have been operating for 10, 20, 30 years, where they've kind of been doing their own thing. It's a private organization, and that's all within their prerogative to do so. And they struggle when they make that decision to now become a publicly traded entity,
yes,
to now have to meet the requirements of being a listed entity. It becomes difficult for them. And I think, and I'm sure Marlene will back me up on this, has been the reason why we don't see a lot more companies coming to the market.
Yes, that would be major.
We're going to figure out in just a week, maybe more, if you've raised the capital that you wanted. How much were you betting for?
$12.3 million US.
You think you made it?
Our records reflect that we have, but I can't say definitively. Our lead arranger, Sagicor Investments, is in the process now of doing the reconciliation of the subscription applications, which we anticipate will be completed in about another week or so, and then it will make the final report to the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
So people have entrusted you with $12.3 million of their money, and then what?
Well, and then now we move to the next phase of doing what we said we were going to do. So, listing on the stock exchange for us was actually our second capital raise. As you know, we did a private placement last year around about this time. And we did promise our investors then that we would have been applying to list on the stock exchange within a year. And so it was albeit challenging meeting that timeline. It was very important and critical to us to do that as a part of maintaining our credibility and living up to our promises. So that was one of our promises, that we would apply to list within a year. So we're doing that. In addition, we've made other promises as to what we will do with the capital. So our primary focus is investing in real estate. And our strategy is a three-pronged diversification strategy. So we're investing in real estate from a jurisdictional diversification standpoint in Jamaica, throughout the wider Caribbean, and also in the USA.
And what do you mean by investing in real estate? Are you talking about funding projects or actual acquisition of real estate capital?
Actual acquisitions. So, we're an investment holding company. We are investing the money on behalf of our shareholders to deliver returns to our shareholders. And the position and our preferred position is equity positions.
Yes.
So we're acquiring assets, and we're also looking at doing some of our own developments here in Jamaica as well.
I want to bring in Marlene, because with what Pierre just described, you're not talking about the Wigton windfall in 3 months. Right. You're not talking about the use of those funds doubling in 3 months. And the new investor who's come into the stock market pool, who had that kind of experience from Wigton, is their new expectation, and how is that managed?
Well, investing in equities is a long-term investment. And so, quite frankly, persons will price in what they anticipate the company will be doing over a long period of time. And that could lead to a sizable amount of returns, because you are already taking into consideration what the company is doing and what the company says that they will do.
Yes.
Which is the same thing that they would have done with Wigton.
Yes.
So one cannot anticipate really what the price will be like after listing. It could be a big jump, as in Victor, or it could not be. It depends on what the investors see as what the reality will be on the ground.
But the new investor has been spoiled by the performance of the stocks, certainly in the last year, the last 2 years, the last 3 years.
Yes.
And these are investors that are not so sophisticated, who haven't been with the stock exchange for 50 years and understand the dynamics of the market.
Well, I think, this is where market education comes in. And when we do seminars, etc., we always caution that one should not have the same anticipation for every security that is listed on the market. Yes, you're going to, one might feel that they should get X amount, but it does not always work like that. And this is a good program to say it really doesn't. It varies depending on the market at the point in time.
How much did you have to adjust internally? I mean, I know you said for the last year you've been operating as if you were a publicly listed company and you had those kinds of rigors internally to your corporate governance. But did you have to make any changes at all? Things that you never saw along the way?
No, absolutely not, actually. And I think we were very fortunate where that was concerned. And obviously we got very good guidance from day one. Both, legal guidance, corporate structuring guidance, corporate governance guidance, accounting guidance, and we put all of the policies in place. We had our, asset and risk management policies. We have our asset and risk management committee in place. We have our audit committee in place. We have our remuneration committee in place. So at the time at any given point in time that any particular policy was requested of us, we had it ready, and we were able to present it.
Let's go back to the use of funds. You told me there were 3 things, and we touched on one, which is the diversification of the actual real estate, not just Jamaica now, but you're looking in other markets as well. That's one. What else?
So there's a diversification by jurisdiction. There's a diversification by classification. So we are invested in both residential and commercial real estate.
Interesting.
And then there's the diversification by asset type. So we're invested in both income-producing real estate, rental properties, as well as development properties.
Let's stay on the both rental and development properties, because this is particularly a testy time in Jamaica. The courts right now, there's one particular case that's in front of the courts. The jury is still out. People are torn. You've got people in communities that are long-time residents, used to their view, and one neighbor over there. But we also, as a country, particularly in Kingston and some of the more urban areas, are looking at denser living, high-rises, and there's that conundrum. And you've decided to place your bets on real estate.
Yes.
Risk?
Well, there's always risk involved, yes. And, but our economy has been growing for quite some time now, a few years. And one of the spin-offs that you'll find in many jurisdictions around the world as a result of a growing economy is the spin-off is more real estate development. And so that's a reflection, and that's being reflected here in Jamaica right now. And by all indications, we expect the growth to continue for some more time.
Some say it's a bubble. Some say we can't continue at this rate. When you look at the cost of real estate, when you look at the paucity of land, there's just so much, and the bubble is going to pop at some point.
So Jamaica is a relatively large island, yes? And we sometimes ourselves get caught up in speaking about what we see and feel happening immediately around us.
Kingston 6 and 8. Kingston
6, Kingston 8, and we refer to that as what's happening in Jamaica. And that's not really an accurate depiction of everything that's going on. Now, we can talk about segments of real estate and areas where certain real estate is being built. And yes, Kingston 6 and Kingston 8, the hot areas of St. Andrew, where a lot of development is happening. Can it continue to happen there? No, it has to stop. We're going to run out of land. We're going to run out of opportunities. We're going to find areas where the existing residents are not receptive to new development and high rise happening. And the developers are going to have to go to other areas. Is it that there aren't any other areas to go? No, there's tons of other areas to go. And they're going to have to be...
First Rock will go there?
Yes, they're going to have to redevelop. First Rock is all about, finding those opportunities and delivering those returns to the shareholders. And not to say that if we don't find an opportunity in Kingston 6, we're not going to take it. We are, but we also have to look at the other areas.
Are we being myopic? Those folks who are looking at small-scale real estate development, are they being myopic? Are they the ones that are driving up the price?
Mark, let me tell you what's... there's the fundamental rules of economics, demand and supply, yes? And if there is an imbalance of supply, where there's a greater demand then and lower supply, then the price automatically is going to go up. And there is demand because there is a lot of capital that is available in the market. And this is one of the things that is contributing to the performance of our stock market.
Yes.
There is capital looking for a home. And there are a lot of people whom find comfort in buying real estate. And comfort to a point where it's not even so much about the rental income that they are generating from the asset. They are just more comfortable with having that money somewhere where they can look at it, touch it, kick it, feel it, they can drive by and say, that's mine. Yes, and if it stays there and it's empty and it's dark, as we find with a lot of some of these developments right now, and they're actually okay, they much prefer that than the money sitting in the bank.
And it doesn't hurt that there's no more government paper and government bond and all of these things for you to make these big
major
returns.
Contributor to it.
You put it in Airbnb.
Major contributor to it.
Marlene, that's your competition.
What?
To the stock exchange.
Real estate?
Absolutely.
Yes, real estate is always has always been a competitor.
Not concerned by that rivalry? You're comfortable at the stock exchange?
Because there is money in the system. There are companies that want to come to market. There are companies that we are encouraging. So there is longevity. So we're good. We are encouraging companies, real estate companies, to list. And we are encouraging persons to invest in those companies via REIT, so that those who cannot own real estate in and of itself can own a piece of real estate as well. So, I mean, there is a relationship, a good one.
And absolutely no reason to be concerned about competition. I mean, the investor needs to diversify their portfolio. So it's not a case where,
either or.
And it's not an either or. Mind you, there are those who do choose either or, but it's a minority.
Yes.
But that's not the most prudent strategy to invest in one's money.
They're not quite listed yet.
Yes.
There's still just that tiny step to go. Yeah. Walk me through that tiny step.
Okay, so after the basis of allotment, as he has said, Sagicor is working on the numbers.
Yes.
In terms of how those will be allotted. After the basis of allotment, then the application for listing will come into the stock exchange along with that basis and the register of members. And then the listing committee, a committee of the board, will meet and determine, based on all the various documents that must be submitted, that the company can be listed. What we do, though, is to ensure that those documents are, as the process go on, that those documents would be in good order.
So you're not expecting surprises?
No, we generally don't, because we do the work ahead of time. Yes.
Congratulations again.
Thank you.
I'm sure lots of people are looking on and expecting big things from First Rock, not just now, but in the years to come. And here's to another 50 years of success.
Thank you very much.
We take a quick break right here on Point. When we come back, it's the word on the street and the numbers. Welcome back to On Point. Last year, Jamaica had one of the best performing stock markets in the world. But how did other stock markets match up? Let's take a look at the numbers.
In terms of size, the Jamaica Stock Exchange, JSE, was ranked 60th at the end of 2019. However, despite its size, it grew by 30% during the period. That performance placed the JSE in 4th spot when it came to ranking the top performing stock markets in the world during 2019. Topping the table, however, was China's CSI 300, which rose 29.4%. The US's S&P 500 was next best, with growth of almost 27%.
Our On Point team hit the streets and asked, should Jamaica put more public bodies on the stock exchange?
Yes, I strongly believe that. But at the same time, more persons need to be made aware of what these stock markets are about. So more education needs to be put in place. But yes, I strongly believe that. Also, as relates to more government agencies, they need funding. So by this means, then of course, capital can be gained. But I must go back to saying that education is needed, because if you ask any everyday man what exactly is the stock market about, what are these IPOs about, they don't know. So education is key.
Yes, I believe so, because the country is too small to have so much foreign investors, and by doing that it will allow the economy to grow.
Yeah, I think so, because it's never a bad idea to have Jamaicans investing into companies that are Jamaican. Investing in companies that are internationally based or solely foreign based is adding to their economy. Whereas if we put more Jamaican-based businesses on the stock market, we build our own economy. So I don't think it's ever a bad idea to invest in Jamaican.
The short answer would be yes, but it's just how much do they have left to put on the stock market? There aren't much asset left that is in government hands. Most of these have been disposed of already. I see going towards the privatized, the attempted stock ownership for the highway. That's very interesting. It's going to be a very huge public offering, but it should have been done a little. It was on the cards for quite some time. It's just that we have been forced to accelerate privatization by the various international lending agencies and the IMF. So we're actually following the dictates of the IMF to dispose of these publicly owned assets. But it makes sense.
Well, I absolutely love what's happening with the stock exchange. This leaning towards financial inclusion and the fact that the stock exchange is not just for rich people, but it's actually there to create wealth is a notion that I love. And I think the team at the Jamaica Stock Exchange get it. Marlene Street Forest and her team understand, and they've been putting in the work. You've seen it, it's evident. So many new people would have come on with the Wigton listing. So many people understand that you don't need a whole lot of money to be able to own a piece of a company. I think Wigton was as low as $1,500, and it's going to apply as well for those folks who are going to come on the 17th of February and start to purchase the Trans Jamaica stocks, because at about $1.40, let me correct myself, $1.41 per share, people can buy into a little piece of the highway, be an owner. People are accountable to them, and you never know what can happen. I love also what it's doing with taking some of those companies off the Jamaican books, putting in some kind of rigor and structure in some of those companies that have been riddled by, or could have been riddled by, this government lethargy, this change of government and there is party politics that come into the play of running the company. A lot of these companies could do well with a shake-up, taking them off government books and putting them under the rigor of being publicly listed. I think it's a very interesting time. And yes, we were number one in 2015 and also number one once again in 2018 on the stock exchange. And we're coming down now, but like Marlon Street Forest says, but the fact that you're at number one doesn't mean you're at the best of your game and you're doing the best that you can possibly do. And there is still a lot of room to grow for us here in Jamaica. Still a lot of companies that are in need of capital, that if they get the right capital investment and structure, management, they could do amazing things. And the reality is we can't depend on just the 3 million people that live here to be able to give some of these companies the legs that they need to run. I would love to see a greater participation by the diaspora, not just in the regular stock exchange, but also the social stock exchange. Some of those companies that were listed on the social stock exchange experiment and their projects are projects that really have big hearts that need not so big pockets, because the whole essence of the social stock exchange is really that little make nuff. And so if you can, go onto the Jamaica Stock Exchange website, find the link for the Jamaica Social Stock Exchange and make a donation if you can, because some of these projects make a world of difference. And that's where we're gonna have to wrap the show this week. I've gotta say a big thank you to the very hardworking crew that make this show happen week after week. And thanks to you, the viewers. Without you, none of this would make sense. I think Dennis should be back with me next week. And until then, I'm Patria K. Charles. See you.
On Point was brought to you by Dargin Global.